Hey friends, Pastor Chad here, Wednesday, coming to you outside by a new cross we have put down here at the church that I love. We're going to make into a great place of prayer. And so I thought it'd be very fitting because I'm going to take a pause from our Number 6 Blessing series that I've been in and just walk with you real quick because this is a significant day in the church and not all people follow it, and I understand that. It's what we call Ash Wednesday, and it's a day that we begin to look and examine and to look inside ourselves and maybe ask some questions like, is something not right in me or something broken in me, and is something that in me that needs changing? And you may say, well, we can do that any day. We don't need Ash Wednesday for that. And you're right. But there's been times throughout the scriptures where God would tell the people to do festivals or to do certain ceremonies or do certain things certain ways to be reminded. We do Christmas every year. We do Easter every year. We're going to talk through that in a second because this is leading up to Resurrection Sunday. That's what Ash Wednesday is the entrance gate into and what it's all about. Ashes throughout Scripture and throughout the Old Testament especially were things where you'd find people who would toss it onto themselves, and they'd be sitting in ash. It was a turning point. It was something significant in their life that they needed something changed, or they were grieving, or they were mourning a loss, or something was in their life that just hurt them and was broken so badly that they were sitting there and cover themselves to remind themselves that they were dust of the ground, and from dust they shall return. You may hear these words when we talk about Ash Wednesday. And it's not the significance of the ash or what's done, it's why, and it's a reminder for me personally that I need to continue to examine myself. And this gives a perfect example of why I do that. Much like Advent is the preparation, the examination, the anticipation of the birth of Christ. Ash Wednesday is that open door into the Lenten season that we begin to examine and prepare our hearts for the resurrected life that Christ is going to offer. It actually originally started a long time ago with the church, and then became a part of the thing where the people were going to get baptized or enter into the church, and so they would go through this 40 days of preparation for that. And so we do the very similar thing here, where we just say, hey, we're going to call you into time of preparation for Easter or Resurrection Sunday. It is the lifeblood of the church. It is what the cross led to. It wasn't just the death on the cross, but the resurrection. And in ashes, you see people sit there and they cover themselves with it for mourning or for that brokenness. And today I want you to see it in two different ways. I read a book recently that talked about this brokenness and talked about Adam and Eve. And when they walked through the garden, they had no shame until brokenness entered in, and that broken covenant happened. And when that happened, all of a sudden they began to do what? Hide. You see, brokenness and shame begin to bring us into a place of hiding, or to protect ourselves, or to hide people from all of my stuff. And oftentimes we do that from God as well. Even though we know that God sees and understands who and what we are, we often try to hide those things. And so this is a time we begin to examine our hearts, to look into ourselves. The book I was reading talked about this idea of two different kind of shames. One was the shame of where you just hide. You feel so guilty and so bad about yourselves, you want to hide from the world, whatever that might be. Maybe someone put that shame on you, and it's something you didn't even do, but it's something that has been pressed upon you, and you just don't want anybody to be aware of it. And it begins to tear us apart and tear us down. But there's another part of shame I want to talk about today that happens, and it's not always just the negative side. It's not just that we want to hide ourselves from something, that like Adam and Eve, that not only did they hide from God and God asked them where they were, there's a part I think of them that they saw themselves where they once walked the garden completely naked and unashamed, and now they felt shame and began to cover up. That they realized that there was something beautiful here, that God had something amazing here for them, that He created something within them that is something great. And sometimes we have to examine ourselves, not because we did something wrong, but we have to ask ourselves that we understand the potential and that we understand the greatness and the goodness that God has created in me right now. Is there a way I'm limiting God because I just don't feel like I'm good enough, I'm capable enough, I have enough? And so maybe we confess and we lay down not just our sin and the things we confess against, the things we've done against God, but maybe we need to lay down the things that we don't believe that we can do because of who God is. And it's at the foot of the cross that this whole story leads us towards. The Ash Wednesday leads us to Good Friday, to the cross story. And the sacrifice that God didn't just die on the cross for sins, even though He did. He also died on the cross for restoration, for resurrection, for a new life, to remind us that there's something more to this life, and at times we give it. And so we begin to claim that again in our story as Christians, as followers of Christ, in this calendar church history part of Ash Wednesday into the Lenten season. We claim again that we are the children of God. And there's something great about this. We look at our world and we understand that God has created this world not to be broken, but to be great. But there's brokenness in it. And we confess that. And we ask God to help us be a part of his restoration process. Today, I want you to think through those questions and ask yourself, what has God have in store for you? What maybe are things in your life you need to set down and let go of and confess? Or maybe, what is it that you don't see about your life that is beautiful, that God sees in you? I mean, can you see yourself today through God's lens, through God's eyes, and say, maybe I need to confess that God, I'm not living fully in you because I don't believe that I'm enough. And my friend, that's a lie. That's a lie from the enemy. You're enough because God has created you enough. Sometimes we have to understand and live within that potential that God has for us. That we have to understand that even on the Ash Wednesday, when they put the ashes on your forehead, it's not just a glob on the sackcloth or on your forehead. It's in the sign of a symbol. The symbol is the cross, to remind us that, oh yeah, from dust you've come and from dust you go, but also there's a resurrection power. There's a person that died on the cross to make you clean and whole. And we have to give our lives to that. That cross reminds me that all things are possible and that you today are enough.